Well, joining us again is the president of the Security Studies Group, Jim Hanson. He also served in the U.S. Army Special Forces and conducted counterterrorism operations.
Jim, thanks so much for joining us here. Just to kind of switch it up, the conversation here, does this to you lead to a call for more surveillance? I know that a lot on the far left would say that surveillance is a bad thing, but how do you stop a group like this? How do you stop these kinds of attacks without watching what people are doing before they decide to just walk into a crowd and blow themselves up? Because even as President Obama admitted, you can't stop. If somebody's willing to die for a cause, how are you going to stop them from killing people?
You can't stop them unless you start looking where they're hiding. So that means doing some things that some people find distasteful. And I don't blame the larger Muslim community for feeling bad about being surveilled in any way. But the problem is not all Muslims are terrorists, but far too many of the terrorists have been Muslim. So President Trump made a very strong call to the Muslim countries to help us root out the extremists, to drive them out. The same thing has to be said to the Muslim communities in England, in the United States, in the rest of Europe, and all around the world. These people are hiding in your communities. They are part of your communities, even though they may disgust you as they disgusted the president who called them losers. Well, let's get your help. Let's point them out. Let's not give them any place to hide. And together, let's stop terrorism.
You know, Jim, one of the issues, one of many that we've heard about in past attacks, whether it be in Belgium or the Bataclan attack, Paris attacks, is communication being shared across agencies. And when we spoke with you earlier, you talked a little bit about that. Is that still a significant problem? Could that have helped at all in this attack?
You know, I think the communications have improved. The ability to share information has improved. What seems to have weakened a bit is the will of some of our governments to make those hard decisions. They don't want to be called anti-Muslim. They don't want to be called Islamophobic. President Trump made some very common sense executive orders saying we probably should not be allowing people from countries where we can't tell the good guys from the bad guys to come to our country. Well, the British and the rest of Europe have been wide open with their borders. They've been welcoming in ways that have been detrimental to the safety of their own citizens. It's time to look at that. It's time to look at these communities where there are large numbers of jihadists, where there are extremist mosques and preachers, and basically tell people we're not going to tolerate that. If you come to this country, you have to share our values and you have to assimilate, or we're not going to let you come.
I think you would agree that I don't think any culture in the world is as PC as the United States is attempting to be right now. Do you think that that gives us an increased vulnerability? Obviously, we have a big ocean border from the Middle East, which I think has helped us tremendously. But does that give us a vulnerability that we are so afraid of offending somebody by a sweeping rule like banning, Muslim countries or banning refugees from mostly Muslim countries from coming here?
It absolutely is causing us to allow people to come here who killed Americans. In the San Bernardino terrorist attacks, the wife came to this country on a spouse visa. If we had been allowed to do surveillance of her social media, we would have found out she was a jihadist and never let her come into the country. But our PC restrictions during the Obama years stopped our border security folks and our security agencies from doing that. And the neighbors in San Bernardino saw things happening. They were worried. They were concerned, but they didn't want to speak out. They didn't want to be branded as haters. That has to stop. It is fair to look at people who are doing things that are dangerous. Speaking out about it is not hate.
And on that point, the older Tsarnaev brother, who had been at one point being watched by authorities, had gone overseas, received training, and come back to America as well. We should mention that we're waiting for a live comment from Theresa May, who should be coming out at some point, the British Prime Minister Theresa May there, and we will take that if she appears to make a statement.
Yeah, she's currently in the bid for a run for re-election. that's all been put on hold as the news came last night at around 10:30 of a terrorist attack in Manchester in the north of England, on the north side of that city at the Manchester Arena, where 22 people, and it appears to be mostly young people, were killed as they exited a concert. Ariana Grande had just gone off the stage. A pop star from the United States had just gone off the stage seconds before a bomb appears to have gone off right near the exit, which would have been a much softer target as security would have eased up a little bit at the end of the concert. Once the show was over, once the star is off the stage, of course the security laxes and everybody starts to walk out. That is when the bomb went off, and we have video of that blast. You can see the flash, you can hear that boom. Somebody who's listening to the radio has the sound of it, and it's just chilling to hear. And you hear the details about parents sitting outside in cars waiting for their, preteens and teenagers to come out of a concert, and then a bomb goes off. And imagine the process of trying to figure out whether or not your son or daughter was going to come out of that arena after something like that. It just makes you sick to even consider.
Several churches in the area who took children in. Parents still this morning looking for their children. The trains in the area were all shut down, so people were basically trapped. People online were opening up their homes, letting people know, hey, I have a sofa that you can come stay on if you need it. Everybody trying to band together to help each other. Jim, I wanted to go back to you, though, because earlier you spoke about some suspects, and you seem to have some inside information on that. Can you bring us up to speed on that again?
I don't know that any suspects have identified, so I don't have inside information regarding who may have committed this act. I think we're waiting on the British, who seem to have potentially identified the bomber last night. That was when they came out with the information that it was a suicide bombing, led everyone to believe that they had a body. They had potentially a lot of their closed-circuit televisions may have identified this person as they were approaching the venue. But we have not had any information regarding who may be involved with the bombing by name.
But you said that you thought that they had been looking at potential people prior to this attack.
No, I'm sorry. That was not me, and I don't know that there were any active investigations that have been announced in any way that said they were looking at a particular ring that would have been involved in Manchester.
Okay.
Jim, I wanted to ask you a quick question. I mean, talking about, we've all are on a learning curve of getting used to the way the president talks and not having that very political speech that we've been so used to and so, accustomed to after all these years of having traditional politicians in office. When the president comes on, standing right next to Mahmoud Abbas and calls the terrorists that were behind this attack evil losers, and says he won't even call them monsters because he thinks they would like that. What message does that send to these terror organizations? And we can actually, let's go ahead and play that bite. We have it ready. Let's go ahead and listen to the president say it himself.
So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers in life. I won't call them monsters because they would like that term. They would think that's a great name.
So, Chip, go ahead and respond to that soundbite there and what you think the message to, or I shouldn't say we know the message. How do you think that message comes to those that are involved in ISIS, involved in these jihadist beliefs?
It is refreshing to have a president who speaks that plainly about something that the rest of the world can see as an evil. I think one thing that should be noted, the president spoke in Saudi Arabia to a room full of Muslim leaders, far too many of whom are still involved in supporting terrorism. Now, he called for them to join in the fight against it. Today, he spoke next to Mahmoud Abbas. Now, the Palestinians have what they call a martyrs fund that pays the families of suicide bombers for the rest of their lives for their attacks in payment for their suicide terrorism attacks against Israeli civilians. They need to stop that before there is any way to have peace. And I hope that's the message the president is giving to the Palestinians behind the scenes. You need to stop what you're doing, supporting suicide bombers, and join the rest of the civilized world in condemning it.
And what do you think about that possibility? Do you think that this was an intentional move on the president's part to address these people? I mean, that was one of the critiques that he was receiving yesterday when he went to Saudi Arabia, when he went and talked to, I believe it was, 50 different Muslim countries he spoke before, asking them to come together. People here at home were saying, you know, wait a minute, some of these countries, some of the people there are funding terrorism.
He knows that, and they knew it. And that's why, again, it was refreshing to have a president who was willing to dress them down in public for what we all know and they all know is a massive wrong. If they're going to stop it, they need to know that the president will punish those who step over the line. He dropped a Moab in Afghanistan to let those people know that we would not tolerate their actions. He hit Syria's airfield where they were conducting chemical weapon attacks from, and he needs to send the same message to all the folks there who are supporting terrorism, and hopefully sent it to the Palestinians saying, stop what you're doing if you want peace.
Well, Jim, thanks so much for coming on here today and helping us carry this coverage here for the past hour. We do appreciate it.
It's been good.
All right. Thank you.